All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to A Life and Career in Sport, presented by our Office of Graduate Admissions here at Ohio Dominican, as well as our graduate program in sport management. I appreciate everybody's attendance tonight. We have a special treat for you. We have, in our third iteration of this event, we have a panel of professionals in the sport industry here in Columbus that also serve on our board of advisors that are going to share with you tonight their experiences working in sport, how they got there. Of course, you're going to hear a lot about their volunteering, their internship hours that they completed, things that you probably hear from your professors in the classroom or from anybody who actually works in this field. Tonight, I'd be remiss to not put in a plug for our graduate program here at ODU. We have many of our instructors here tonight. We've got Dr. Kate Riffey, who's over there in the corner, teaching our sports psychology class. We have Mark Beatty, who's teaching in our undergraduate program in sport communication. We have one of my former colleagues and now professor at Denison University, Dr. Greg Lott, with us here tonight as well. But we have a 36 credit hour graduate program in sport management, and I encourage you to take a look at it, ask any questions to Riley Kirby, John Naughton, or myself. We're happy to answer them for you. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator of our discussion tonight, our Assistant Athletic Director and Sports Information Director and current graduate student at Ohio Dominican, Scott Miles.
Well, thank you, Dr. Strode, and thanks to everybody for coming out tonight. We're really looking forward to a great event here tonight. Last year, if any of you were able to attend, we had a great discussion with Jerry Snodgrass, Assistant Commissioner for the Ohio High School Athletic Association. A little bit different this year. We've got the three panelists. We're going to do a little roundtable Q&A up here, and then we'll open it up at the end to any questions that you guys have for them. So, without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and welcome up our three panelists here tonight. And first, we have Eric Archibald. Eric is a native of Canton, Ohio, received his bachelor's in science in sport marketing from the Fisher College of Business at Ohio State, and then also received a Bachelor of Arts in sport management at Ohio State. Eric started his career in sports by spending 3 years working for the Columbus Clippers and 5 years working for PGA golf tournaments, where he worked in sponsorship, sales, and operations management. And over the past 6 years, Eric has been with the Greater Columbus Sports Commission as the Director of Events. Our next panelist is Ben Keller. Ben graduated from Ohio State in 2005 with a bachelor's in mass communications. After he graduated, he interned with the Chillicothe Paints and then worked as a ticket sales representative for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And in 2006, he was hired by the Columbus Clippers and is now the Director of Group Sales for the Clippers. And our third panelist, Chad Schrader. Chad is a general sales manager at IMG College, representing Ohio State University's Department of Athletics multimedia rights. He is charged with maximizing sponsorship revenue, management of key assets, and providing strategy and leadership for the nation's largest collegiate property. Chad came to IMG College from the Columbus Crew, where he served as Vice President of Corporate Sales and Broadcasting. Prior to joining the Crew, Chad spent more than 3 years at Ohio State, serving stints as the Assistant Director of Athletic Marketing and Promotions, editor of OhioStateBuckeyes.com, and as a marketing associate. We know what we're doing, we promise. We'll go ahead and get started with questions for each of the panelists here tonight. And I think it's interesting looking at all three of you and your backgrounds. Each of you work in such different aspects of the sport industry and in roles that many of our participants here in the audience might not be familiar with. So I was just hoping you guys could start by describing some of the day-to-day aspects of what your job entails. And Eric, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, and actually, when I define what my role in the sports universe is, it's different than collegiate sports or professional sports or athletic sports. The Greater Columbus Sports Commission is a 501c3 community involvement organization. We work to host different types of sporting events in Columbus. So my day-to-day job is about the sport and tourism industry, not the ticket sales or the sponsorship sales or anything of that nature. It's more about the community as a whole, engaging the community, reaching out to the community, giving back to the community, and working with the hospitality industry. So that's what my role in the sports side is.
Yeah, for me as group sales director, it's kind of split up into the off season and during the season. In the off season, we're trying to fill the ballpark, work on new ideas for promotions, other ways that we can get groups into the ballpark. Then obviously renewals of our spaces. And then once the season starts, it's working every single game in the operations side, making sure all the party areas are doing well, the suites are going well, all the catering's there. So it's kind of a two-sided thing for us.
So we represent Ohio State from an athletic marketing and sales perspective, and in essence oversee the multimedia rights. So we don't work for the university, but obviously work with the university. And the majority of our day is really spent building relationships, trying to put proven programs and assets together that companies can buy sponsorships with to really help their business. So a little bit unique, very much sales oriented, and really driving revenue for the school. Ultimately, that's the goal of what we're doing on a regular basis.
All of you in your backgrounds kind of just give a brief bio of how you guys got to where you are, but Eric, looking at your past, and you have experience in marketing and sponsorships, and now you're working in event planning and operations. How important was it for you to have such a well-rounded background in getting to where you are today?
Very important actually. So when after working a few seasons with the Columbus Clippers, I took a job down in Florida working for a Champions Tour golf tournament actually, and the only job at the time was selling sponsorships. I had never sold anything in my life. I was the assistant director of merchandise with the Clippers actually, and I was told to go out and sell sponsorships. I found out real quickly that I wasn't too good at sales. But in working for that golf tournament, I got to work with volunteers. I got to work with event operations and logistics and transportation, a different type of thing. And I got to work so closely with them. I realized that I really enjoyed the event management and operations side of things. Soon after that 1 year stint doing sponsorship sales, I moved on and did 5 years of event management with the PGA Tour, and now being director of events at the Sports Commission, I get to work with events every day, and we work with events that are youth, high school, collegiate, professional, amateur, all levels, all skill sets, all different types of things. So my process of getting to the event management and the path I took was very important. And my undergraduate degree is actually in sports marketing. And I only pursued that degree and pursued a graduate degree because of one professor, sports marketing professor at Ohio State at the time, actually. So I just furthered my education and got to know more about sports, and that was one thing that was important to me. Just had to start out on that marketing side for me.
Ben, for you, your background at Ohio State, you had a degree in mass communication. So what was your transition like to get into the group sales position that you have now?
Sure. When the mass communication degree, I thought I was going to be a PR person, hopefully an SID, some type of thing. Actually, I wanted to be the PR director for the Chicago Cubs. I don't know why, but I got an internship when I was in college with the Chillicothe Paints. Loved baseball my entire life, favorite sport by far, and I worked at Chillicothe. It was just at the time it wasn't even collegiate wooden bat, it was an independent league team, and so it was just low, small crowds, but I loved every single second of it. The people were nice. I loved coming to the ballpark every day. I knew exactly then I wanted to go into sports. So after graduating from college, I looked for a career in sports. So they always say the easiest way to get your foot in the door in sports is through sales. So the Columbus Blue Jackets had a ticket sales rep position open. I went into that not knowing if I'd even like sales, And that job was literally 100 cold calls every single day. And by cold, I mean the coldest of cold, through the white pages, the yellow pages, anything and everybody we could hit up, we did. And for whatever reason, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So at a job fair that the Columbus Blue Jackets were hosting, that we were hosting, I met the Columbus Clippers. They had a position open as an assistant director of group sales. I went and applied for that, met those guys, and been there ever since. So I just finished my 12th season. Love sales. I love talking to everybody every day, and it's worked out really well.
And Chad, for you, you have your background, marketing, broadcasting experience as well. How were you able to use those roles to transition into your position that you have right now?
Yeah, my position now really has been kind of the perfect marriage of all those things. Since we are the multimedia rights holder, obviously I'm involved from a broadcasting perspective, not necessarily the technical side, but certainly on the sales side. I was very fortunate. I worked as an office assistant as a student in the men's basketball office at Ohio State, really as my start, and had the opportunity to volunteer with a lot of folks. I volunteered with sports information and worked during men's and women's basketball games and other events, and really got to like that side of the business and knew that I wanted to pursue that. A little bit like Ben, I knew that sales was the right opportunity for me, and so I was also a graduate assistant in athletic marketing as I was getting my graduate degree, and really took an interest in sales, and then really that's my career path that I've been on ever since. But really the networking part of that and just getting experiences in many different areas kind of help shape and mold, I guess, the direction that I ended up going.
As we're still kind of thinking back and looking at the audience here today, and many of them undergraduate students, and for each of you guys, I want you to kind of continue to flash back to your days when you were college students, and what were some of the things that you were doing then during your undergraduate days to also kind of help you grow and gain experience to help get your career path rolling after you graduated?
Do I have to lead off all these questions, or
We can go anybody who wants to chime in.
You're doing great.
You want to Okay. For me, you guys are ahead of the 8 ball from where I was. When I was a junior in college, I hadn't even declared a major because I started as a biology major. Chemistry didn't go well, so I just got my gen ed done for the next 2 years, had to declare a major. Talked to my academic advisor. Communication sounded great. I liked writing, everything like that. So you guys are already ahead of where I was. I knew I liked sports. The internship in college helped me greatly, confirming that I like sports, but obviously helped me get a job and career further. So my undergrad experiences probably aren't the best example.
I volunteered a lot. That was my way of, again, trying to figure out what I really wanted to go into. I was fortunate that the position within the basketball office was actually a paid position, which was great. So I felt like I at least had some money coming in and could volunteer my time elsewhere. So that was fun. I tried to meet as many people as I could. Networking is really important, and certainly I would, as you all are beginning this journey, I would just tell you to get to know your classmates as well as you can, to get to know your colleagues and others that you're working with. You will have those relationships for the rest of your life. I certainly still have those relationships from my undergrad and graduate days with people now across the country at at various sports teams and various organizations, and they'll be there for you, and likewise you can be there for them too. But to me, that just putting yourself out there and meeting as many people as you can is really, really valuable.
For me, I went 3 years in college without pursuing a sport business degree or interest at all, actually. What I liked, I was a math major, actually. Thought I was going to be a math teacher and coach basketball and baseball in high school. That's all I wanted my entire life. And a friend of mine at the time was full-time at the Clippers, but they needed some interns to apply. So I applied for that internship, and that's just what started my path in sports. So, talking about volunteering a lot, working a lot, lots of unpaid internships along the way. Because of the Clippers internship, I was still able to pursue an opportunity in coaching. I coached a high school softball team during one of the seasons there as I pursued my graduate degree. So just taking a chance internship with the Columbus Clippers at the time when I was at Ohio State I didn't even know Columbus had a minor league baseball team, so I wasn't real excited about it, but it's what has got me to where I'm at now. Because of the opportunity to pursue my interest and love in coaching is really the reason why I have the job I have now too. It took me about 10 years in going through ticket sales and marketing and merchandising and some logistics and operations, but once I got back to Columbus and working for the Sports Commission now and doing some things in the community, it gets me back to that background of coaching, something I was interested in my entire life. One thing I would add to that I regret when I was in college as well, especially an undergraduate degree, I did not do as good of a job at networking as I could have. So just being here right now at this program, it is a good testament to the interest that you all have. But that's something that I didn't do, but certain individuals, certain professors I still stay in touch with, now 15 years after college. So just continue to stay in touch with those that help you along the way.
And to kind of follow up on that, you guys kind of touched on volunteering and networking. Are there any other keys for college students as they're looking for those entry-level type careers to kind of get their path started? Any other things that would really help guide them along their ways to getting a career started in sports?
Yeah, and I feel like we're all kind of in the same boat here, in that we got maybe a little bit later start, but I would certainly encourage people to get involved as early as you can. And a lot of internships that we offer now, if you don't, which seems silly, but if you don't have sports experience, you can't get the internship. And that is a big change and difference. So no matter how you're getting involved or you're volunteering, whether that's with rec programs or for kids who are in high school getting involved that early, which again seems maybe silly considering you don't really know what you want to necessarily do as a career, but certainly getting involved as early as you can. And I still go back to, it is what you know, but it's also who you know, and although we may not like that, that's the reality. So people want to work with people they like, and so the more friends you can make, the more knowledge you can gain, the better off you're going to be, no matter where your career will take you.
Yeah, to add to that, I think this past year we received over 600 resumes for about 13 or 14 internship positions. So that just shows you the big thing with your resume, obviously make sure your resume is sharp. If there's just one spelling mistake, we have to put them in no pile instantly just because we have to sort through them. But again, yeah, we're looking for sport experience. I know that's really hard to do when you're starting, but get involved in your campus, get involved with Scott, get involved with anything you can do. Being here in Central Ohio and at Ohio Dominican, there's so many opportunities here for you to volunteer, to get an internship, to just do whatever you can to get your foot in that door so you can get your next foot in the door for an internship and possibly a full-time job. The sports world is just so small and so tight-knit that once you do get that foot in the door and do make a good impression, if we don't have an opportunity available, I can reach out to anyone else I know in my network, at least here in Central Ohio, if not nationwide, and see what they have. So get your foot in the door, do what you can, try to volunteer for everything you can here.
Yeah, that's exactly what Ben said as well. There's opportunities all over. Going to a great university right now, volunteer, get your name known, have your professors, your advisors, reach out on your behalf, use them as references, and there's definitely opportunities nationwide. So for my organization, our sports commission is a part of a national association. There's 350 sports commissions like the one I'm a part of nationwide, and we have connections with every single one of them. In addition to those event rights holders that are nationwide as well. So there's opportunities all over. There's just about the networking and making yourself known. An individual that I just hired on as a full-time member of our event department actually was a one-day volunteer for a high school football tournament 3 years ago. And I worked with that individual for 8 hours one day, and they just made such a good impression that once this job came by, 3 years later, they just stood out when their name came across in the resume pile. So it's just, you can make an impression if you don't have that year-long internship, 3-month internship, paid or unpaid. You can still make a difference by volunteering and staying in touch with those individuals in the community.
I can follow up with that with my own experience. In my position here at Ohio Dominican, I have a graduate assistant who works in my office, and the last 2 graduate assistants that I hired, both of them had just volunteered with me prior to me hiring them. So same thing, no pay or anything involved, and they were willing to come over, do an unpaid internship essentially, and learn the skills and the background and the knowledge needed. And then I wound up hiring them as my graduate assistant. And so far I've had my time here at Ohio Dominican, I've had 4 graduate assistants. The first 3 that I've had no problems finding careers in sports immediately after they graduated. And the one that I currently have right now, he'll graduate this spring, and he's on a great trajectory to find a full-time job. But I never would have hired him had he not been willing to come over and volunteer some of his time. And now I think for him the sky's the limit for wherever he goes. Much like my previous graduate assistants that I had. So certainly to kind of echo what everybody's been saying, being willing to kind of step up and do some of those extra things, even for as small and minute as they might seem, really can go a long way for you in the future. Well, one thing I also really wanted to kind of touch on is, the subject, the headline of tonight's event is life and career in sport. And I think one of the things, that a lot of people might not necessarily understand or realize is trying to find that balance between life and career. It's a lot of hours that go into these jobs that you have in sports, nights, weekends. And Eric, I think I'm circled back to you now to start with this first question here. And just how have you been able to kind of try to strike that balance between life and the career that you have in sports? Certainly, I know you've got events going on in Columbus all the time. You're traveling all the time. How do you find that balance that you have?
Yeah, it's even more difficult nowadays. The cell phone. You're always turned on. You're always expected to answer right away. If something's an emergency, you're expected to answer that. So you just need to mentally prepare yourself and manage your time that way. It's impossible, mentally and physically impossible, to work 24/7 once you have, families, friends, spouses, whoever, as your careers evolve. You just have to manage that and communicate with yourselves and those others that your lives impact, and keep that in mind. Sports is a demanding profession for sure, and if I wanted to, I could work 24/7. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but it's just knowing that you have a support system around you too. That's why you have bosses and supervisors and mentors and coordinators and teammates that work with you all the time. It's definitely a team atmosphere, and just managing your time and managing your workload, wisely.
Yeah, just to go into the hours for us during the season, we'll come in at 9 a.m. every day. Every single full-time staff person does that. And if there's a game that night, we'll be there until the last fan leaves the ballpark. So that could be 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And if there's an 8-game homestand, you're there that many days in a row. And if the 8-game homestand ends on a Sunday, then you get to come in on Monday and work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So there's a lot of hours, especially in minor league baseball, not in everyone in sport, but the biggest thing I say for life-work balance is this: when you do have time off, take advantage of it. I turn off my phone when I'm not working. I just can't look at it because I'll be answering emails every single day, all day long. So just shut it off. What I do for fun is I like to go to baseball games. Actually watch a baseball game instead of work a baseball game in the during the season. And then when we're at our off season, which I don't know if Archie does, but when people do get an off season, just take advantage of as much time as you can by relaxing and just doing what you enjoy.
I'm not good at this, and this is something that I feel like every year it's my New Year's resolution to have better work-life integration as balance, right? Because the work-life balance thing doesn't work. So how do you integrate your life into your job and vice versa? I'm fortunate. My wife worked in sports as well, so she gets it. She understands it, and she helps keep me grounded from that perspective. And it is the same. And it is, specifically on the sales front too. If there's a sales call coming in, you clearly want to answer the phone because you want to make the sale. So if that call comes at 10 o'clock at night, you want to answer the phone, and it's hard to try to work with, if it's someone that you do business with, certainly you can help kind of train them. If you are always answering the phone at nighttime, they know that they can always call you at nighttime. So it is important to set boundaries when you're working with people so that they understand that, and most people are respectful about it. But it's tough because this is very much a consuming business, all-consuming business, and it's something that everybody should be wary of because it can absolutely eat you up from that perspective if you're not careful with it.
We talked about your backgrounds and some of the things that you guys are looking for hiring and for getting your career started in sport. I'm going to get a little bit more specific for each of you again because you work in such 3 different sport industries. And Ben, I'll start with you. What are a little more specific, some of the skills or traits that you would be looking for to make somebody successful in working in group sales?
Sure. I mean, we look for someone that's outgoing, is personable. We like people, obviously, again, we want someone to have, hopefully, minor league baseball experience is a huge thing, just because those hours I mentioned, it's really hard. But what we've done is, even if you can't get an internship with us, you can start as like a ticket taker or a ticket seller. That's a great way to get your foot in the door with us. We can see how you work every single day, every single game. And we've had many, many people then become an intern with us and then hopefully then get a full-time job with us. But we're just looking for outgoing people that are happy, have a good, just a whole good personality, because that's what we want. Our biggest thing is just making sure everyone has a great time when they come into the ballpark, and you can't do that when someone's working and just not happy to be there. So a good overall person, I guess.
Chad, how about for you?
In addition to being a good overall person, which I would agree with that too, for us, it's we want people. Likewise, I mean, we want people who are outgoing and personable. Very much what we do is based on relationships, and so it's getting to know people and understanding what's important to them. It's not rocket science what we do, fortunately. So it is people that you work with on a regular basis. So you want to make sure that you can have fun. You want to have creative people to work with. We have a really good office now, and that I feel like a lot of our skill sets are kind of well balanced. Certainly from a sponsorship sales perspective, you need to be, and maybe sales in general, but you need to be persistent. You need to be disciplined. You need to make the calls. You need to follow up on when you say you're going to follow up. Those are all things, again, that are easy things to do, but you'd be surprised at how few people do them. So to be successful in the job, it's very methodic from that perspective, but ultimately it's about building relationships with the person that you're doing business with.
Yeah, and for us, I work with a very small staff. There's about 12 of us full-time in the office. A group of us work on the events, a work of us do some sales, a few of us do some sponsorships, and then some of us does marketing. But at any given moment, depending on the size of the event, the scope of the event, any one of us could be helping out like them. So when we're interviewing folks for our internships or for full-time jobs, they have to be well-rounded as well as being a team player. So we all understand, we just talked about the work-life balance, so we don't want any one individual working more than the other. So it's all about a team atmosphere and getting the job done and just working collectively as a group. So being good team members is the first and most important thing that we look for when we interview candidates.
And for each of you guys, I'm just curious, was there any piece of advice, any mentors, role models that you kind of had that helped guide you along as you were getting your career started, and anything that you kind of took away from early on in your career to kind of help progress and get you to where you are today?
Many people, I would say, and I don't have anything specific except that I feel like I've picked up something from everybody, and certainly you get to see as you progress through your career, I guess, who the people are that you would model yourself after. I think, again, going back to just when you're volunteering or putting yourself out there or meeting new people, I think you pick up on those things. Everybody has their own style, but I've certainly been very fortunate with having people kind of point me in the right direction and help me along. Nothing really specific that kind of jumps out at me, but I would just say in general, that goes back to building that foundation that you have and the network that you have.
For me, it was an individual I alluded to at the beginning, just a sports marketing professor from when I was an undergrad at Ohio State. He was the reason I stayed and got my graduate degree and just stayed at Ohio State and made it easy for that, knowing that he was leading the program at the time. So definitely a professor, had a big impact on my career. He's an individual I stay in touch with to this day, so I would recommend doing that. But directly in the work field, one person that sticks out in mind is the very first golf tournament I ever went to. I was in my early 20s, went to a golf tournament, had never been to a golf tournament my entire life until I'm working this golf tournament. After the sponsorship sales aspect of it was over, I was working with some volunteers and doing some of the on-course operations. And this individual was retired, living on a golf course in Florida, 3 times my age, and I was still young, fresh out of college, and I've never seen an individual work harder than he did, like in my life. He was in charge of 1,500 volunteers, but he was working like harder than every single one of them. He was in charge of setting up all the course operations and setup of the course, and so just to see him manage his time and for him to really to see him bust it, even though he had all these other people there too. He was working right alongside of us, so someone that helped me establish that type of work ethic early on in my career.
Mine would probably be during my internship. I think I was having a bad day. It was raining outside. I think we were just done pulling the tarp, working on the field because in Chillicothe we didn't have that many people, and everyone was just in a bad mood. And he said, "Look, guys, you're at a ballpark. I mean, how bad can this really, really be?" So I take that every single day when I come into work. If I'm having a bad day, do whatever, I just look out the window and I'm like, hey, I'm working at a baseball stadium with a baseball team. How bad can it really be? And that just kind of brings me back down to earth.
Yeah, and I want to follow up on that. I mean, that's the important thing to know. We've kind of talked a lot about volunteering and hours and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's working in sports. And I know for me, one of the best parts about what I do is getting to work with the college student athletes and be around the college atmosphere. For me, that's second to none. And I've love seeing all of our students around campus and watching them play and participate in games and just being a part of that and helping them or watching them grow and develop from freshmen to seniors. And for me, that's what drives me each and every day. And so for each of you, again, it's sports. I know there's some long days that can be stressful at times, but what are the most fun things that you have? What do you enjoy most? What gets you going each and every day in your jobs?
For me, it might have been 3 years ago when we were hosting the NHL All-Star Game, and right outside my office there was a 3-story snow slide going down Nationwide Boulevard that we got to go down at like 2 a.m. So because there was the line was too long the rest of the time, and we weren't going to wait in line. We got to do some ice skating that same weekend too, but. For me, it's a lot of fun. I really love my job, and I get excited every morning going to it because I know I get to work with great organizations in Columbus, like Ben and the Clippers. We work with Ohio State a lot. The Crew, the Machine, the Blue Jackets, Ohio Dominican Capital, Otterbein, like all the universities, all the colleges, the OHSA. Every day is different. Every day is fun in its own unique way. I work with a group of wonderful individuals, and every day is just fun. Every day is different.
The biggest thing for me is just seeing that family having a great time, leaving the ballpark. All the kids are happy. Everyone's happy. Mom and dad are happy. That's as good as it gets. We can't control what happens on the field, but what we can control is what happens in the ballpark. So whether that be a promotion, zany music, anything that's going on, we help control that, and we just want to make sure that we have a great family-friendly environment. And seeing that family have a great time, that's awesome. Also, when my groups come out and they just have the best time, they come back and they just say how much fun they had, and I finally get to know, I mean, after 12 seasons working there, I've gotten to know so many people, and just those relationships make my job awesome.
Yeah, for me it's game day, which I'm sure is probably true for everybody, maybe in more general terms. But if you're interested in sports, more than likely you're a competitor by nature, and there is nothing better than the game day atmosphere and the electricity that is there, whether it's at a small event or the Super Bowl. You get fired up because it's what people do. It's why you work hard. It's why you do all those things, is for game day. So to me, if you can't get excited about that, this may not be the right path for you, because it should get the blood boiling. And then the other one for me too, on the business side, is getting a sale and knowing that you created it from nothing. That you reached out, that you were able to understand a problem that someone had, you provided a solution for them, they bought the solution works. It really makes you feel like it's a sense of accomplishment, and those are very, very high highs. But again, going back to the competitive side of our competitive nature, that's what drives you to continue working harder. So for me, I love that aspect of it as well.
I think one last question, and then we'll go ahead and open it up for Q&A from everybody in the audience. And we've kind of touched on some of these things, but one last, what piece of advice would you give to everybody sitting in this room looking to get their careers started in sports? If there's one thing that you wish that they could take away, from this tonight, what would you like for them to hear?
My biggest thing is just network. Get to know people. Volunteer, do what you can. If you know you want to go into sport, go after it. If you know you want to go into sales, go after that. If you really know you want to go into PR, do that. But yeah, just network, get to know everybody. When you get your foot in that door, it just opens so many doors. So get to know people, make your rounds, and just have a good time doing it.
Yeah, I would echo the same thing from a networking perspective, and I also say stick with it, because it could take a while to kind of get in the right place at the right time, but opportunities around every corner, and you never really know when it's going to present itself. That's why the networking piece is so important, because it could be a spur of the moment type of opportunity that you wouldn't otherwise know about unless you have that connection or that relationship.
And for me, the only thing to add is I always appreciate it when job candidates call me up, those that weren't selected for the position, and they ask me, why weren't they selected? That just means that they want to get better. And those individuals, we'll reach back out to, or they'll be on our mind to push in other places. So in addition to networking, I really appreciate when candidates, college students, reach out and ask questions and talk about why, and they say, how can I be better? What can I do differently?
All right, this time we'll open it up. If anybody has any questions for our panelists, yes, all the way back.
Yeah, so you guys talk a lot about volunteering and getting experience before you apply for an internship. Is there any sort of volunteering that you would specifically say is better than others? Like, would coaching, do you want people volunteer in a coaching situation in a sport or sales somewhere?
I think it probably depends on the internship that you'd be applying for, but the fact that you are trying to get involved in the field demonstrates your commitment to the field in general, and that you want, this is something that you really care about, you want to pursue. So to me, having any of that experience, and experience whatever it is, again, will help you be a more well-rounded candidate. I just think it makes you more qualified just by the effort.
Any other questions? Dustin?
So if a person wants to, for example, work in coaching in the future, would you say any small experience from even coaching little league team or something, or even something like that, would that help a person wants to work as a coach in the future, or do employers look more coaching in that area or age group that they're applying?
Are you asking like where to begin maybe? So like, yeah, Boys and Girls Clubs, the YMCAs, there's lots of youth clinics you can participate in on the summer. Ohio State has a fabulous youth clinic program. There's rec centers out there always looking for volunteer coaches for all types of sports too. If you're trying to be, you think you want to be a baseball coach for whatever age level, don't be afraid to coach some other sport that you might know how to play, to coach, football or golf or anything else, because, coaching is coaching. It's like you got to understand how to instruct the kids or the individuals, and then you hone in on that specific sport. So don't be afraid to go outside what specific sport you might want as well.
Do you guys feel like you had to be selective with the jobs that you've taken, or did you feel like you kind of picked where you wanted to go, or did you have to kind of do whatever, like the first thing that popped up?
I mean, for me, being so late into the sports game, I tried to get any internship I could. That's probably why I wound up in Chillicothe, which was a blessing in disguise. And then also my first job was as ticket sales. I didn't even really think I wanted to go into sales whatsoever, which again became a blessing in disguise. But yeah, I wanted to work in sports. I knew I wanted to work in sports. That was it for me. So I was going to take any job I could get. And then once I thought in my head, once I got that foot in the door, especially a minor league organization like us, we are a little smaller than a lot of other major leagues. So if I did a good job in sales, and I could hopefully, maneuver my way whichever I wanted. But I love sales, so I just stuck with that. But yeah, we just do what you can. But if you really want to work in sports, get your foot in the door as however you can, I'd say.
It was interesting for me. Before I got the job here at Ohio Dominican, I had interned at the University of Toledo, and it was a one-year internship. And when I got done with that, it was the spring of 2010, and I was applying for jobs all over the country. And it was interesting. There were jobs that I applied for that I thought, oh, for sure, I'm going to get an interview and have a chance. And I wouldn't hear a word back from those places. And then there were other places that I applied for that I was just, I'm just throwing a dart at a wall and see. And I'd be getting phone calls and interviews, for some of those places. So, it's just interesting how the job search and all that just kind of works out. It's just because you never know. You never know. And so certainly don't be afraid, or don't think, oh, I'm not qualified for this, so I'm just going to ignore it, or think that you were overqualified for something. And I would just, if you're doing the right things and you're pursuing those opportunities, it's going to work out for you. It's just a matter of finding that right fit.
Just one thing to add on that one too, Scott, is like, it depends where you're at, like in your life, how long you've been out of school, or if you're willing to move or do some things. After I was working about 5 years down my career path, I was without a job. Actually, I was in between golf tournaments. I was back in Columbus, and there was a 6-month short-term job that opened up over on the West Coast in the golf industry. Really wonderful opportunity, but at the same time, there was a full-time job opportunity in Columbus, a job I really didn't want, but it was a job that would have kept me close to home here in Columbus, full-time, long-term, and with good potential. So I kind of chose something that might be fun for 6 months versus something that caused me to settle down, and that job I actually kept for 5 years, and it led me to where I'm at now. So you just sometimes you have to make tough decisions. To take a guaranteed thing that's right up your alley, and take it. Even though I was 5 years into my career path, I chose the other.
So when evaluating potential intern candidates or job candidates, I know for a lot of student athletes, like a lot of people don't have that much work experience, doing the sport and school and everything. So how do you guys personally evaluate that, like that they are a student athlete and maybe they don't have as much of the work experience?
Yeah, we would certainly look at that as work experience because you're demonstrating leadership skills, again, determination, your teamwork, all those benefits that sports provide, you're living out. So we certainly wouldn't look at that as a negative that you don't have the experience. We would look at that as you're used to working in a team environment. It's stressful. I mean, all those things are positive attributes that you would still bring to the table. So I don't look at that as a negative.
Yeah, I mean, with us, I just don't use your student athlete or your being a student athlete as a crutch. There's still plenty of ways to still get involved during the off season or even partially during the season. So we still want to see some work from, at least on our end with the Clippers. So keep volunteering, even if it's just like a 5K race or a marathon, just a short thing for a weekend. We still want to see that thing because too many times I talk to student athletes where they didn't do anything at all other than participate in their sport, and they're wondering why they're not getting any feedback or any job bounce back, and it's because they didn't do anything other than that sport. So use your time wisely. We know being a student athlete takes up way more time than anybody else, but try to still fit in a few of those, volunteer opportunities or even small internships if you can.
Yeah, I'd echo that as well. Yeah, Ben hit it right on the head. Just do something, because being a student athlete and graduating with a sport management degree, I don't care. I want to see that you have something else of substance on your resume or in your background that would help separate you from other candidates. Yes, Mark.
That's a question. You guys are all on different aspects of your career. Maybe we're a veteran, you're one of sports analogists. Is there a championship or NFL championship or NBA championship for you guys, like a major goal in the sports industry that you guys have reached? And specifically, is there growth that all you guys are working towards? What would that be?
Are you asking for us, like personally, or like from the organizations that we're with? Okay. I was hoping it was the other, but so you're asking us, like, if there's something we're working towards and trying to achieve and work towards. That's a real good question. I like that. When I was doing working a lot of golf tournaments and meeting a lot of event production individuals, one of the companies that I was involved with did produce some of the ancillary events at Super Bowls, actually. So I went over to Indianapolis and helped with one of them, and at that time I thought that was going to be the coolest thing ever. Is before I had this current job with the Sports Commission. Went there, spent 2 weeks setting stuff up, spend a week tearing things down, and enjoy the event. But then it's gone. It's a good memory there, and everything was gone. But for me personally, coming back to Columbus and starting my family now, and knowing the jobs that I get to work with all the time are just being a part of the community, are more enjoyable and more long-lasting than just that one event. So I can't say there's one event that I'm excited for or working towards, personally. From my job perspective, I would get in trouble if I didn't say the 2018 Women's Final Four coming up in March, which is going to be a really wonderful event from sports tourism in Columbus. That's a Super Bowl to us because that will maximize the current capacity of facilities that we have when we host that. But for me personally, there's not just that one event that I'm looking towards.
For me, you'd be amazed how many people come up and ask me when I tell them, I work for the Clippers and work in minor league baseball, when am I going to get the call up? When am I going to go up to the major leagues? And after working, 12 seasons in minor league baseball, I think I found my niche. I love minor league baseball. I have a lot more freedom. I can wear so many more hats. So on a personal level, I would just want to keep, working my way up in minor league baseball, whether that's, president, GM, whatever. For an event-wise, we're hosting the 2018 All-Star Game and National Championship for AAA. So that's an event that I'm really, really looking forward to. There's going to be a lot of group, hospitality, arrangements and packages that we're going to do. It's going to be really unique. It's going to be the first time we've hosted it here since I believe the 80s, early 90s. So it's something I haven't done. So that I'm really, really looking forward to.
I think, for me in my role, it's kind of neat because I feel like we have 16 varsity teams here at Ohio Dominican, and I feel like I'm a part of all those teams without having to do like the 6 a.m. workouts and conditioning, which is great. And I ride a lot of those the highs and lows, that our teams go through. So for me, I mean, personally, gosh, it's so much fun when we win. I mean, any game, but then certainly the conference tournaments and postseason and things like that. For me, those are like personal victories because for me that shows that everything we're doing here is working. Both, we're here to give our student athletes the best experience that we can. That's what I'm dedicated towards, and so for me. The personal victories, the championship, for me is going through that every day, and I kind of touched on this earlier. Seeing all of our student athletes grow and mature during their time here. And I've got a few of you guys that I know a lot better than others because some of you in here have worked with me in the past and everything. And so it's just been such a neat experience. And we just had homecoming a couple weeks ago, and with so many athletic alums that were back on campus, and to see them and to talk to them and see how far they've come since they've graduated, for me, that's where my personal championship is that, they had such a great time here as student athletes, and they're coming back and they're invested in this place. Okay, we did something right along the way, and that's for me is what makes all this, really worthwhile.
From a career path standpoint, I thought I always wanted to be an athletic director, I think was my goal, and then I realized that would just be a huge headache that I didn't want to deal with. And I really enjoyed the sports sponsorship sales aspect of my job. And one, I know we touched on it, but one kind of opportunity led to the next, and I didn't really have this career path in mind. But much like Ben, I feel like I'm comfortable with where I'm at now, and I as long as I can kind of hone my skills or use my traits or gifts that I have and get better at it and continue to challenge myself from learning and working and enjoying new experiences. That for me is kind of the next step in my career. I don't know what that will be or what my actual title would be or where I would work, but as long as I have a chance to continue to grow is kind of how I'm motivated now, I guess, is by what my championship would be. I'm really fortunate, too, that I've had a chance to be a part of some great events and celebrations, and those were awesome, but I'm not sure that they may have been aspirational to me when I was in college. They're fun, certainly now, but now it's just, how do I improve the quality of life for myself, community, those type of things. That's really what is driving my career.
Well, please join me in giving our 4 panelists on stage a big round of applause for joining us this evening. I hope you took something away. I certainly did. I learned something every time any of these folks come to our campus. They're such assets, not only to Ohio Dominican, but also to Central Ohio. I get goosebumps hearing about all the great championships that we have coming up, or all the opportunities that we have, not only for the consumers of Columbus and Central Ohio, but also for our students to be able to volunteer, intern, and eventually work in professional sports, professional and amateur sports. John Naughton and Graduate Admissions has a special gift for our 4 panelists on stage.
Thank you.
Before we break into our networking piece, I'd like to formally acknowledge Riley Kirby for helping plan this event. Riley's with Graduate Admissions. Please give her a big round of applause. Of course, this event is sponsored by our master's program. We've got information in the folder for you on that. And again, Riley or I can answer any questions that you may have. Mark Weaver, thank you for coming in tonight and doing our film. And again, thanks to our adjunct faculty and friends for joining us this evening. At this time, our stage guests will be out on the floor as well as our other guests here in the audience to network. So please take advantage of this opportunity to get to know each other. Also, one other piece, get to know, we have friends from Denison and some other institutions here today. The classmates that you are sitting around the tables with are going to be your network down the road as well. So make sure that you get to know not only the people that you sit next to each other in the classroom, but also your colleagues at institutions that might be 15, 20 miles away. So we'll break into the networking, but again, thank you all for being here with us tonight.